Hey, hello. I just cracked a joke.
Hello.
That's why we're just laughing. No worries. Hi.
Hello,
Hi.
funny lady. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's getting colder and colder here in London.
Mm.
I'm
And here
Savan.
in Brooklyn. I'm Elaine. That's me at the bottom of the screen, founder of Flow in Action.
Hmm. And I'm Savan from Ogunte. We support women in social enterprises and social finance. And today it's about love, enterprise, and enchantment. This is our sixth episode.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it works there, we have Ellen and I are having a chat about love, enterprise, and enchantment. So there's always a sub theme that we develop every fortnight, and we pick up a quote and we discuss that quote, and then sometimes we forget the quote, and we roll it. A quote that from someone that inspires us, and that gives us an opportunity to chat because don't we love to chat, isn't it?
We do. We do love to
Do
chat.
we?
Yeah.
Sorry. And okay, sixth episode today. Today we are going to have something very practical, pragmatic, and also very mysterious.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. This week, we are exploring the mysteries of building relationships, networking, and sharing a connection to reach your purpose. So, Savan, you chose this quote from Oran Pamuk from his collection Snow, and he says, "Every person has a star. Every star has a friend, and for every person carrying a star, there is someone else who reflects it, and who carries this reflection." And everyone carries this reflection like a secret confidant in the heart. So, I have a star. My star has a friend.
Mm.
It's reflected in that friend, and we carry this reflection together. So it's this really beautiful, beautiful description of building relationships and the bonds that are needed to make change happen. So,
Mm.
why is networking, building relationships important? Over to you.
Well, networking is what underpins the work I do in that social change arena, but actually, it's not about networking at all. So there you go. I start already conflicting thoughts. Because what's important is the purpose, that guiding star that you have, and for you to attain that guiding star, or to make a step towards it, you're going to have to build connections.
Mhm.
So the networking and the connection is a byproduct of getting closer to that purpose, because you'll share that purpose with other people anyway.
Mhm.
It's extremely rare that guiding star, that purpose is just for you only. Some people will have a similar guiding star on
Yeah.
energy. Mhm.
And so, how did you put that into practice? Because you built Agunto,
Mm.
which is a global network for women social entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So what links them all was that desire to make a change, whether it was for the neighbor next door, or for a sort of a whole continent, or for a theme, and it started in 2001, to be precise, in the Netherlands. And social change was the purpose, whatever it was, and we didn't know much how to make that happen very much. But what I had when I started on my own is, like, I started conversation,
Yeah.
and I started to understand that someone's guiding star was the same as another one, although it was not articulated the same. So we needed to get more conversations going. Okay. And
Mm.
also, we understood that some people needed to have tools in their toolkit, or a whole toolkit, or whole tool bag altogether.
Yeah.
Um, and so, by building connections, building and connecting people with resources or funds at some point, or friends, or challenges, or experiences, they started to grow their story. They
Mhm.
started to articulate their story better. They started to create alliances, and
Yeah.
get champions or become champions of others, and all that kind of march towards that guiding star took place, and that's the mechanism. And they call it very poorly networking, but that doesn't
it
sell
doesn't
what it
reflect
is. Okay.
No, no, not at all. For me, it's much more like building a constellation of stars. And when you see a constellation of stars, it's these kind of connections, and it's the space between the threads between us that really connect us in our. We're all unique, but we're pulling together in this same direction. And I think there's another aspect of this, which is which you've touched on, which is these conversations unfold as actual as friendships in different layers. This is a courtship, not seduction.
Okay. So there's several things to unpack in there. You talk about, there's two things. You talk about the friendship. I'm talking about the different aspects of love. Okay. So yes, of course, when you create connections for the work you do, and you might develop this privileged conversation, and it can become something of a sort of a warm friendship, or respect, or support. So this is where, if people are interested in the various definition of love, what love is, there's seven forms at least in the Greeks, and the understanding of love that which you can explore. I'm happy to put this in the chat afterwards. One of them is agape, one of them is eros, one of the, so many of them. And I think that when you understand how love works, then you can also determine the level of intensity or the format that your connection will have. And this reminds me, as what you just said about courtship. This one day I was invited to a podcast by Liam Black, who was working on the audio version of his A to Z of social entrepreneurship. And he did that and it was all about networking. And he said, what is networking for you? Well, actually, it's like flirting. And he says, wow, for once, it was curious. I said, what do you mean? You're going to get hammered if you talk like this. I said, no, actually, I do, because again, in the context of different forms of love, to flirt is literally, in its etymology, means to tell stories of flowers. To flirt, telling stories. You can talk about flowers if you want, you don't have to, but this is just to help you on your way. Yeah. So it's all about telling stories and creating hooks, not thorns, for people to continue and maybe cross-pollinate. And create more flowers and gardens. And the other aspect of the flower thing is, if you and I probably will throw that back at you because you're a queen in biomimicry, is that flowers or seed or in a garden, they use what they have next door, what they can see. They, unless a bird take a seed or something and then goes and take it somewhere in other garden. But basically, it's that proximity that you need to remember. Sometimes the best connections are the ones that are next to you, closest to you. So closeness of mindset, physical, geographical closeness. So the basic of networking, remember, you are a beautiful flower, and you're going to tell stories of yourself as a flower or about other flowers, and you're going to create a story, like a bigger story. Okay. I hope that makes sense.
It does, and I think it's really important to actually re-own what flirting means, because that is very beautiful. To fleur, to flower, to blossom, to seed, to pollinate, to cross-pollinate. That is really important in our understanding of building relationships, but also that self-ownership of self-love, in terms of, I understand myself and I understand the value of what I offer. Also, sometimes talking to somebody as a mentor, as a friend, as a coach, as somebody in my network can help me understand that better, help me reflect that more deeply.
as Orhan Pamuk says in his quote. Someone
Yeah,
else, yeah. You carry a star, someone else reflects it. Yeah.
yeah,
How did
yeah.
you do all these in pragmatic terms, your networking stories? How did you do that when you started?
Well,
Tell me about your journey.
sorry about
Right?
my journey.
Networking
Well,
journey.
well, it's funny. I came to Switzerland about 9, 10 years ago, and I didn't really understand the value of my network until that point, until I had no friends, and had to start from scratch. And I mean that in a obviously a sad, dejected way, of course, but I had a really strong network when I left the UK, and I've been working in social change for 17, 18 years by that point, and built it up and built it up. And we'd all gone on to LinkedIn, and from MySpace to LinkedIn, and we'd moved to
Joy.
all of these things. And so I'd collected people, and I had some close people that I was close to, but I didn't understand what that meant, really. I took it for granted, and I didn't understand how to be connected to people, really. And it was only when I came here and literally started from scratch that I started to understand that it was about that shared purpose. It was about being part of a constellation of people who supported you, reflected back to you, engaged with you, helped you build credibility, find credibility, but most of all shared that set of values and mission.
But how, just for people who don't know you, who just jump on for the first time on these podcasts, when you say here, it's
yes.
somewhere lost in the mountain in Switzerland where you might not have a lot of networking events, or when before 2020 we could meet in person, but it's not just a guaranteed thing that happens in your area of the world, is it?
No, there's very few people in my area of the world in a mountain valley in Switzerland.
How to make it easy.
How to make it, and kind of 2 hours from Geneva, and I really took that for granted. And then I realised it wasn't quite as near as I thought it was, because also having lived in London all that time, an hour and a half.
We're spoiled. Yeah.
Across London sort of thing, and there's events everywhere.
Did it make you select your relationship differently than that I've got my cat coming to join us? Did you make you select your networking opportunities differently now that you really need to think twice before traveling for 3 hours? How did that happen?
Yes, it did. Well, the very first thing that happened for me is what made the difference, what changed everything, was that in that first year, realizing that I had no network and therefore no friends in this shared space, was to start looking online and try and find them. And I was really lucky that Giving Women, which is a philanthropy network for women in Geneva, based in Geneva, was just really coming to fruition, and had been mobilizing for about a year and a half. And so finding them literally felt like a life raft, and I would travel up to Geneva just to see them, because that collection of like-minded shared values, women, was really a safe space and a space of reflection. And one amazing woman who's has really shaped the social innovation scene here in Switzerland, Aurore Bouy, who's founder of SoftWeb. She listened, and she gave me the time of day and reflected back, and they became those, like the North Stars, multiple North Stars, which I had hooks then in order to build the constellation. So
she listened, or did she open doors for you, or how did she, what kind of networker was she?
Yeah, it was firstly listening. And then saying, these events are here in this landscape. This is the landscape you're in here. This is where it's at. This is how it's developed. Come here, to this event, and that's really how it started. It's a snowball effect, and that's what I now advise other people to do. Is you'll go to some networks and they won't resonate with you, and that's okay. That's not your tribe, but go to other things and listen, and then share what you do, and it is about listening. It is about engaging. It is about connecting. And it is about building the relationship. It's not a sales conversation.
No, it's a giving conversation. That's different.
Yeah. So how have you? This has been really vital, though. In how big is the Agunte network? It is vast, in actual fact.
It's vast. I like when you say we would use that constellation image. So imagine a sort of a big sky of stars. And of course you could collect the stars and collect names and extra, but it's not about collecting, it's about what you do with them. And the same way for people who are interested in that, sometimes you've got the sky, the star sky, people who are drawing the big bear.
Great Bear,
Great Bear, not the big bear. Or the Capricorn or the Scorpio or what have you, because I don't know these things very well. I'm always intrigued about, and they take different shape. You need to understand that. So what happened is that our network has got some. It's not formalized, hyper formalized. We've got ambassadors in the Ogunte network, and they're not there to sell the thing. They're there to galvanize locally what happens in a woman-led social entrepreneurship system, share with others, create conversation. So we have people who are in Nigeria, in Brazil, in Pakistan, in the States, and we also have a map where people pin online their business. Yeah, map.ogunte.com, and it's a way for us not to be at the central of the hub. Is that people can pin themselves as, okay, who's there in Pakistan who does something in my area of work in social entrepreneurship? Just do it, and then you send a tweet. It's very light touch. It's tweet to tweet, but it's not invasive. It's not threatening. What happened as well is that we were never evangelical about what is a social enterprise, because when you work in a global fashion, that definition will change. Now, don't get me wrong. Definitions are useful so that, for instance, policymakers move on and do something with it, because it's so vague. It's been very hard within the UK already, imagine, to even build some legal structure about it, because the diversity of the structures is diversity of what's on there to create social change is vast. So definitions are useful and stuff. But when you work in a network that spans different countries, you'll know that the concept of social entrepreneurship is different, and also it's existent. It's denied sometimes because of cultural or political or legal context that can't really make it live, the way it could be. So, for instance, we would have also people from NGOs. Charities, yes, okay, it's not social entrepreneurship, but they don't have the choice. Either they're commercial entities, full on, or they're NGOs. That's for instance, in Tunisia, in North Africa, you have that complexity of things where you have to navigate and explain over and over that you're in between. You're something that doesn't exist yet in the understanding of the majority of people. Only a clique will understand. You need to expand that clique. So our job has been to really make this circle much more less walled, but much more fluid. Opening up and welcoming in the circle people who are, for instance, doing more arts-based social entrepreneurship, who are mixing up diverse sectors. We're not staying in their clan, So that's what happened, and mainly in Brazil, I found that very useful, and it was the embodiment to what I was looking for. Kind of multiple sectors at once.
I think that captures it, that sense of, these fluid constellations, and really important to understand more. There are legal definitions of social enterprise, but also this sense of it being a common purpose, a way of being, a way of designing solutions for, or businesses for social impact, the ones that you understand your impact across a value chain, across a supply chain, that you understand how that product empowers people if you take products from these spaces. And it's very much being able to have that discussion in a space is really valuable, and increasingly valuable, because in order to respond to the events that we're seeing globally, we need to form these constellations not only as friendships, but also in order to be able to create these value chains where we collectively respond to calls to action, to providing products and services that we collaborate on innovative solutions.
But collaborate is not a sort of things that happen, at 5 o'clock on Friday. It's a continuum, and in that continuum, and to be pertinent and to be relevant, you need also when to have the humility to say, when you have a product that seems to have worked somewhere, to listen to during that flirting conversation to the other person and say, what is different in your context? What is that kind of coaching form of communication? All the question that starts with what, how, where, who, which, certainly not a closed question. When you have a conversation with these kind of enabling sentences, you are gleaning for information. You get the seeds, you get better context, and you understand sometimes your service, your products is not relevant for these people. So you have to listen. And then you meet somewhere in between. And then when you've given the business cards, the real work starts, which is sitting at a table, start to shape ideas, potentially later a project, or maybe a business if you're lucky, but that's further down the line. You can't run. But first you start with this very open, enabling question, listen, starts to understand, the context or the garden of the other person.
Yes, yeah. I remember my my job after my postgrad was at the British Red Cross NHQ in London, when it used to be just behind Hyde Park Corner tube station. They were very, very happy days, and I basically remember being taught the skills of how to have those conversations, because it's a learned skill to be able to have these conversations where you ask questions, where you listen, and where you also feel you're not rocked. If somebody doesn't respond to your product or service, whether they don't understand it or they're not interested, it doesn't devalue what it is that your idea or your product or your service. It's really important to remember those two elements of or separations, that it's still of value. It may just not be ready for them, or it's ahead of the time.
Have you got a story, a sort of pragmatic story to illustrate that?
I'm not sure I do. No, I do, but I have to know. I remember a very. I had a crashed and burned. I was very young, so I'd be in my early 20s, and I went up at a networking event to talk to a lord, and he was a lord of a very big bank in London, as a chair of a very big bank in London. So I rock up, and he just closed me down in a heartbeat. But I kept trying, and I kept trying. I'd been tasked with trying to talk to him, to tease out what he was interested in terms of the charity. And he just was not interested in talking to me. And in the end, because it was the time of Twin Peaks on television, so I was like, "Oh, have you watched Twin Peaks?"
Did you say that?
I said that.
And suddenly
he
So
just
well,
went. He just literally turned his back on me, and I was
oh, we
like,
didn't
"Oh."
like it.
He didn't like Twin Peaks, and he didn't like me very much, and he just
Ah.
wanted me to go away.
Okay, so at
And
some
I
point
did.
there's a two messages. At some point you understand that maybe the person is going to be the crush of your life, and maybe have. And how would you have handled that differently now that you have go over the pain?
I would have sent somebody who, in the first place, someone he considered his peer. Actually, in that day and age, it was more about being a peer conversation. But actually, I would have listened more and asked an opening question: how are you? What interests you in the organization? And listened instead of feeling that need to talk and talk and talk. A bit like I'm doing now. As I'm
So no, it's okay because we had a story. We had a story. Story of flowers. Conter fleurette. Tell the stories of little flowers. Okay, and that's the same. And there's something about networking and leaving a message somewhere and expecting that the world stops to go back to you and say yes doesn't always work.
No.
So remember the analogy of flirting.
Yes.
When you start telling a story, you're not asking someone else to jump into your bed straight away.
Yes. Showing of petticoats, as we call it.
Okay, so, and I have that, so showing love and support means that there's a step for things happen in steps. If you, for instance, need you network because you're in need of resources, knowledge, and skills.
Yeah.
You need to understand who you are asking. You need to do your research. You need to explain a bit about you and also formulate a few questions. You need to say, ideally, yes, I want to create that support program for, I don't know, children in the suburbs of Lagos.
Yeah.
You're in big pain right now, but okay, this is a big project. Can you be my mentor? What?
Yeah. No.
Go back and say, okay, what is it that you know? What is it that you need to know? And then when you engage in a conversation for network, ask a tiny question. One question. It's like theater rules in France back in the 17th century. Sorry, I really dump a lot of analogies this year. Today is theater is all about one action, one time, one place. When you ask a question to someone you've never met before, who doesn't know you, don't know where you come from, how can they, in God's name, answer you accurately if they don't have enough information? And maybe you need to be mindful as well that it's not the time or the place to ask that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
and it takes a few goes, it really takes a few goes. But I think that's the call to action, I think, this week. For sure. What did you say? One place, one question.
One time, one thing. Yeah, one theme, one place, one time. Yeah.
Try out that connection, try out that connectivity, that networking like that. And have the confidence to do it. Have the confidence to trust the process of unfolding, of flirting, is one step at a time.
Yeah. So, for instance, we have a question from Maria. She says, and she's daring, flirting, and says, how's about love and support? Would you be the mentor for me? I run a social enterprise in Georgia. So she supports women artisans to develop craft products and promote them. So that's great. And it's big endeavor. So what kind of mentor or networking would Maria need to do? I'm happy to answer, but I'm talking. How would you enable Maria to rethink and to step by step and flirt rather than jump?
Yeah, look for the events that are happening locally linked to your field, and try and I know that's now more difficult, but what can you go to online? Be seen, first of all, and add stuff. Now we're online into chats.
Yeah.
Look for a social enterprise network that's local. And if there isn't one, maybe just start to form that constellation yourself. Just over dinner or e-dinner or e-coffee. Become part of the Agunte network, for sure. Become an impact woman. And I think just very simple, one step at a time. Don't be rushing into, I have to do a selling conversation, but it is about just seeding, seed.
Yeah. The other thing is you ask for help and look at what your mission statement is. If your mission is to enable a whole supply chain of women, or a group of women artisans in rural Georgia to know how to go on with their business and to deliver that in frontier markets or last mile markets, go for the themes that you are working on. So a network of women artisans. I'm thinking, for instance, Rede Asta in Brazil. We can also look at how do you, in which circumstance you have the case of women who are located in rural areas. So I'm thinking about Ajaita Shah, who leads frontier markets in Jaipur, India. I hope it's the right location. So look about the themes and be more surgical when you ask, because otherwise you're going to get general kind of advice, which in this day and age is a bit of waste of time. So look at the themes that you have already. Remember the flower in the garden. Look at what you already have next to you, and starts from there. Now, if you landed on this network, that's great. So that means that we've got lists of, we've got articles every day. We've got interviews with all these women on the website, on ogunte.com, and you can look for themes, and then you can connect directly to these people, or at least before you connect, do your research. There's nothing more irritating for someone who's approached to realize that the person who asked the question haven't done their research.
Yeah. And I would just add to that, it's great to just get a big bit of paper and download, and in that research, just map the stakeholders. Who is interested in that space? Who wants that space to succeed? Government, policymakers, other NGOs, and it's
or the community groups,
interest,
fellowships as well. Look for fellowships, existing fellowships. Grant-making organizations, because they will not necessarily make a grant to you, but in the network, they've got people who have done that journey, and you can read about their journey, can engage. So do that more into like a sort of investigative journalism project. Prepare your questions, not vague, wide question. Be very surgical. So that's how networking is done. Networking is also journalism. It's finding out stuff.
Research,
finding out stories, finding out flowers, finding out all that kind of things.
And holding the space for yourself to not be rocked. Don't compare yourself in that space when you're doing that research. Your idea is great. It can flourish and grow. It can reform itself, but don't be rocked by when you come across things that are similar.
So Maria, say thank you, and thank you. So I hope this was not a too harsh mentoring, but this was just a great. Thank you, Maria, to bringing us up a case study and just an example how to start on your networking adventure. So there is a moment before we close. There is a moment where networking is going to be a solitary affair, where you do really reflect on what you want to do, what you want to know, who you are, how you're going to present yourself, the form it takes, and then who you go, and then you're going to have that link, a relationship.
Don't get trapped in perfection. Just do your research and get started.
Done is better than perfect, as my friend Lee Chalmers says.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Anything you want to add before we go?
No, just to remind people about the call to action. One time, one thing, one place.
Yes. About your networking. One thing at a time, one time, one place. And then we'll see each other. We'll see each other in 2 weeks.
Yep.
On YouTube, on the Ogunte YouTube channel, there is all the past episodes. Have a look, and we'll be posting on Flow in Action and Ogunte pages. We'll be posting also link to the previous episodes.
Yeah, brilliant.
Every fortnight, we've got a theme that helps you be great and marvelous and be able to talk and network around love, enterprise, and enchantment.
Yeah, absolutely. Go out into the world and do that. Can't go wrong.
But safely. Do that safely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.